Okay, here we are. So this is my very first scheduled live, and it's scheduled because the topic has come up so often that it just deserves its own little space in this like very special group of mine. And I had planned to kind of share the slides from the actual course and like the live workshops that I do because this is an entire lesson in a module. And like I said, it's just very, very important that you know your options because um, maybe even that's like a brand new piece of information for you that you even have an option. There are certain approaches and programs out there that get more press, if you will, and everybody thinks let's go right to this one approach and not know that there are several options that are equally effective, or are just a little bit hesitant about starting therapy at all because they've heard incorrectly that therapy can be harmful. And I know you're not out to harm your child, you're out to help. And what most parents don't know, and kind of probably the post that maybe brought you into this group initially. So welcome new members also. I'm happy to have you here. But an approach to therapy is actually kind of what you want to do or are doing at home, and you just don't realize like this is an actual type of therapy that's been proven to work. So I'm just going to lay it out there. Four different types of general types of therapy for stuttering, give you an overview of what it looks like at different ages, because that's very important too. And then kind of give you some, kind of zoom in a little bit and give you some more specific therapy approaches that have been researched and maybe that you could look for in your therapist if you're in that process. And then finally, just maybe some things to look for in your therapist, or maybe red flags that if they're only doing this, then let's bring up this whole piece of therapy too. So I just want you to be a more informed parent. I know that's what you want to. And a little disclaimer, as I wish I could be all of your speech therapists, but I'm not. I do encourage you to seek advice from someone who knows your child and has directly worked with your child. So this is not advice. This is not a therapeutic like relationship. It's just information so that you can go to that person and just feel more confident in selecting that very important SLP to work with your child should you go that way. And that's the other kind of thing I wanted to say off the bat. You, at the end of the day, when you hear all of these different approaches, you know what's best for your child. You love them the most. You want to help them the most, and you're with them the most. So you are their most important team member. You are the CEO of your child's team, and any SLP that you work with, and including myself, we are there to guide and support you and be like the cheerleader of the team, maybe the team manager, but ultimately at the end of the day, you know your child best. And if going any of these routes doesn't feel right, that's okay. Okay. So I just wanted you to kind of feel a little bit empowered, and knowledge is power. So here we go. We're just going to jump into the different approaches. And I was just going to present the slides from like the live workshops that I do and the course, but I can't. I thought I could with these lives. So bear with me. I tend to get wordy. I'm going to try to keep this under, we'll say 20 minutes. Under 15 is really the goal, but I know myself, I get a little bit too chatty. So I want you to think of therapy for stuttering to be on like this continuum, right? From least, I don't want to say invasive, but like from like we can work around the stuttering to working directly with the stuttering. And so direct therapy is what we call it. So there's four types. So we're going to go over direct therapy, indirect therapy, multifactorial approaches, as well as operant conditioning approaches. And then I'll go through like specific trainings and programs that have some research behind it in each of those different areas. So let's start with direct, and that's probably what your mind just automatically thinks of as speech therapy, right? You take your child to the clinic, or your private SLP comes to you and they work with your child for 30 to 45 minutes and then kind of give you a recap, some home program, hopefully a good home program to do, and then they're on their way. And that works really well with a variety of different communication disorders, really, and it is a necessary part of some families' journey or to help their child with stuttering. And so it's not a bad thing, it's just very direct. So we're directly addressing stuttering in some way. Okay. And that mostly looks like kind of changing the way your child is talking to either reduce their speed or their tension, but it also includes a lot of education about just their speech machine. And so we're manipulating how it's coming out, right? That turtle talk and probably a lot of the worksheets that maybe you've seen online, that is direct, right? But also, I call it direct-ish, is that we can not do that piece of it. We cannot sit in front of the child and say this word, and now we're going to try to say it we're going to start tight and go loose, so that piece can stand on its own. But also, another part of direct therapy is directly just talking about the stuttering and acknowledging it and making it really normalizing it, really desensitizing, and kind of making an open conversation and acknowledging that your child is struggling to talk. And that is so important, and it's a delicate dance always with stuttering. And that's how I feel. It's like I am always feeling out where is he at, where is she at with this, and kind of always following their lead. And for parents, that's not so clear. It's like, oh, like where he's right here, he's struggling, he's crying, he's not talking, and what do I do? But I do have a really good resource if you don't have it already about, when is it time to bring up stuttering or acknowledge your child's struggles. And that's such an important piece. And so we can just kind of do that part of direct therapy and just say, hey, bud, I saw it, like that word was kind of sticky, huh? That was a little tricky. And you know what? I love that you just kept going. And I'm so glad you did, because that was the best story ever, and that is technically under that umbrella of direct therapy, because we're talking about it, we're addressing it directly. So opposite end of that continuum that I referenced would be indirect. So both these types of therapies have the goal of reducing and eliminating stuttering. Oh, I forgot. I know I needed my slideshow. Okay. Okay. I'm going to come back to that. So indirect then would be having that same goal, but we're not saying stuttering. We're not asking them to change the way they talk. We're not teaching them strategies. We're changing the world around them so that they, with the benefit or the result of often reducing the stuttering. So we're manipulating their world, and they have no idea. They're just like, sweet. And that could look like for a lot of programs that you're going to hear about, kind of doing some specialized time within a time frame of setting up conditions where we're aiming for fluent speech, and kind of maybe reducing the amount of talking time or turn taking. So we're reducing all these demands around them so that we are kind of, the result is they're more fluent in these little pockets of time. But also it is kind of addressing I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. This is why I need my slideshow. So it's really a really good, solid indirect program should be addressing the whole child and what it is in their environment and these other factors that kind of turn up the volume on their stuttering. And then we want to turn it down as much as we can so that the result is then more fluent speech. But it's often doing things that seemingly have nothing to do with stuttering, So if your child is having more on the anxious side, right? And we know that emotionality and temperament can be one of those things that turn it up. It doesn't cause stuttering, but hey, if we address the anxiety and we kind of support them in this way using these kind of parenting strategies and mental well-being strategies, if we're kind of lessening the anxiety, then the fluency follows, right? So we're indirectly, we're working on all these things around stuttering that are kind of contributing to it, not causing it, contributing to it. And if we can kind of support them in those ways, then we see kind of stuttering go. And that's why in this pandemic, there's a huge influx, at least in my practice, of parents calling me like, "Wow, it's back with vengeance," or and even an opposite, right? Like so, there I had a few families where the child stuttering decreased. So that tells me that for that little one, that school was really stressful, and when we took school out, then it turned down that volume for her, and for others, that uncertainty, that getting out of their schedule, and that was overwhelming, and that kind of stirred them up inside under the surface, and now the stuttering is more, right? So that is like, I feel like I just went into a whole nother chapter or module, but if you didn't know that's what a good indirect program is looking at your whole child, and the patterns and everything you're kind of noticing. Like, we had a new baby, and he seemed super okay with a new baby, but it kind of coincided with this kind of peak in stuttering, and it's not that maybe the new baby is making him feel kind of dysregulated inside, but maybe it's just his new normal, and it's different, and it's anything that's different is kind of scary for a kid, even if it's a good different, like holidays. That can also be something that kind of stirs them up inside, kind of dysregulates them, and the result, what we hear, is the stuttering. So if we can if we know that, just that knowledge of like getting ahead of that, like what strategies can we do? And there are tons of specific strategies that we can do to support them in all these other areas of life, that can help them experience more or communicate more easily. Okay, so direct, I just went on my or indirect soapbox, and what my whole course is teaching you, and like what we know or believe to be the 3 different main factors that can contribute to kind of exacerbating or maintaining stuttering, or even kind of lessening it and eliminating it. I want to just clarify that stuttering is kind of separated into 3 different age ranges. And the realistic goals for those age ranges differ. And this is the one thing I feel like is super lost in some other camps that say that therapy is dangerous, right? So you guys get that, like indirect, all those things I just described, that's therapy that works for about 75% of kids and families. And which ones it works for, no crystal ball. We look at the risk factors, and there is definitely so many ingredients into creating that indirect program, right? But that is therapy, and I think that's like when my son started stuttering, I was like, I know exactly what to do. We have some risk factors, family my uncle stutters, and blah blah blah. I went into like action mode. My heart still felt like your heart. It's not easy to watch or experience, and our minds just start going crazy. But I just kept thinking, it took me on this whole different path. I'm like, if other parents like knew what I knew, they wouldn't wait to start therapy, right? They wouldn't have to wait that 6 months or that 12 months if they knew that they can do these things at home. So that's like basically why I'm here. Anyway, so differentiating like the different age groups. So there is preschool stuttering, we call it school age stuttering, and then kind of adolescents into adults, right? So preschool stuttering, that age range is like 7s and unders, and these are the therapy approaches I zero in on in this particular talk are aimed at just those that age range, and that this is the only age range where we believe, and research shows right now, that we can have an effect on reducing and eliminating stuttering. Now, that's not for all kids, but it's the one little kind of more malleable because of all of this neuroplasticity that we think that doing these strategies and taking these steps can have some kind of effect on maybe changing the trajectory of it. And then school age would be 7 and to 10, 11. And the elimination is not off the table by any means, but we're really kind of, it changes to what they call management and acceptance. So kind of creating, giving them these tools that they're often referred to as tools, easy onset and continuous voicing, or, things like that, these tools that can make them be, and they can practice so they can experience more fluent speech. But, then we're in kind of, some programs are just now introducing, but it's okay to stutter. And really kind of that the relationship with your child and stuttering is so important. And that's like, yeah. So that acceptance piece with me, that starts in preschool, right? So we're aiming for elimination, but also we are creating a super healthy environment about how they talk and what's important. And what's important is what they have to say and not how they say it. And I cannot stress enough that by introducing that idea to them and creating that context it is way more important than any single strategy I'll ever tell you. So know that, but know that there's like this kind of shift. Like, we have this elimination goal, and we know that it's a realistic goal for about 75% of kids. And then we move into school age. We're not, that possibility is there. It just diminishes after about 3.5, 4 years. The chances of recovery are lessened significantly. So now we're into like, let's teach you how to make talking easier. Here are some strategies. Also, in any good program, like any good therapist should be saying, but it's your choice to use, right? And it's that's what it should be. I'm getting on my soapbox again. But then like into adolescence and adulthood, now we're like, this thing, this is here to stay. And it's going to be a roller coaster ride. Stuttering is so variable because it's so impact, all these environmental and inner arousal and inner emotional states can kind of make it up and down. And the better you get with their relationship that you can have between you and your stuttering, you don't have to love it, but the more you just allow it and get in a better headspace, then we tend to see like the fluency follow. And that's like cognitive behavioral therapy or avoidance reduction therapy, which is a really amazing approach for adults. So just know that therapy approaches differ based on age group. Okay, so we're on time. 18, okay, good. All right, so anyway, this is gonna be like a little mini workshop apparently. Next, okay, so we did indirect, direct, and then there's the what's referred to in the field as multifactorial approach, but is basically a combination of both indirect and direct as needed. So it's indirect, like non-negotiable, like we're getting this really good home program in, and yes, the ones I'm going to recommend, like we're kind of addressing all these little like things that kind of turn up the volume. That is so important. And with some, with like Palin, so I'm gonna get specific. So I'm talking Palin parent-child intervention, which is one of the ones I'm trained in. That looks like 6 weeks of working with you, the leader of your child's team, and finding these patterns, getting in this specialized one-on-one time, which a lot of programs call special time. That's what I call it too. And what strategies are you using in these and giving them little pockets of fluency, so they're fluency focused periods, but also addressing what else in the environment and Palin PCI, they call it like family or child family interaction. So it's things like taking like turn taking and talking and so what that's doing is reducing that the time, right? Like how quickly they have to react. We know that when you kind of reduce that demand on trying to get in your thoughts and ideas and talk fast, when we can reduce the need to talk fast, then we can kind of facilitate some more fluent speech. And that might involve the siblings and other caregivers in their life. And so that might be the central goal of your family interaction. And there's like the child interaction. So that in Palin PCI, that's like those more dedicated little pockets of time or in their day where they're just getting these little moments, little 5-minute periods of time where we are doing other different strategies to kind of get them more fluent. So Palin PCI is an example of, okay, so where you start on that continuum, so sorry, off track. So you have indirect and then direct as needed. Some kids who are really struggling and having these very bad prolongations or blocks, gasping for breath like my son did, turning red in the face trying to get a word, we're not going to be like, hey, bud, wait 6 weeks. I'm going to work with mom and dad. No, we're going to get this good home program in place. Also, we're going to start with more direct and with those specialized SLP or SLT related goals and knowledge that we would never want to place on a parent because we've been trained for this, So I guess on that continuum, it's just either, for me, it's indirect 100%, and then direct as needed, right? We might start it now, we might start it in 6 weeks, we kind of evaluate in 6 weeks, and often it's not needed because the indirect program was so on point and so like a well-oiled machine that we saw the results that we wanted in their fluency. And so the multifactorial also really take into account their emotional well-being, and they really celebrate communication of any kind, whether it's bumpy or smooth. And again, this is not advice, this is still for you to decide, but in my opinion, it's a hugely important piece to make sure that your child knows without a doubt that what they have to say is way more important than how they say it. And the name of my course in progress is called Keep Them Talking. Above all else, keep them talking, okay? So I think I've stressed that idea enough. And so finally, the fourth type of therapy would be considered operant conditioning, and which is a behavioral approach at its core. And this is what LIDCOM program is. And I know you all know LIDCOM. And it's not because it's the gold standard, and it's not because it's better than, it's because they have a really good PR team, basically. They have had amazing funding and huge studies that all these other approaches haven't, okay? But there are other approaches out there. Restart, demands and capacity, restart. So another type of approach out of Rotterdam, well studied, and the only head-to-head against LIDCOM is called Restart DCM, or Restart Demands and Capacities, which I will officially be certified and or trained in as of 2 weeks from now. So, but I do know a lot about it, and it's under the category of multifactorial. And so LIDCOM is, again, a behavioral approach at its core, which uses verbal contingency. So there's different pieces of this program. They do have that one-on-one special time, in which they are, some parents are suggested, let's reduce the amount of talking, the amount of questioning, maybe we're slowing our rate of speech, all those kind of timing reducing the demand for answering. And oh, Aaron, I just saw your post. Sorry. I will. Yeah. So my course is for the sevens and unders, but I've had several parents. Well, I won't say several. It's a handful of parents with kids who are older who really found it like very enlightening as well. Sorry, I just noticed comments. I told you this is my first one. Where was I? Okay, so Lidcombe, yeah. So they have these pockets of these special times as a part of their program, but really the researchers and have really expressed that these verbal contingencies are the thing that makes a difference and the results, and their result rates are similar to indirect therapy, 70 to 80%. I think on the website they might even say 80 to 90. But what is a verbal contingency? So it's it's something that you say that brings attention, either positive or negative, to your child's stuttering. Okay, and so by kind of acknowledging these the stuttering versus, or the fluent speech versus, or smooth versus bumpy is what they really say, that just the simple encouragement of fluent speech or smooth speech, and the kind of like, can we repair that disfluent speech, is what they thought to be the main ingredient of the problem, or of their success with this program. And it is indirect in that we're not asking the child to do anything, change anything with the way they're talking, except that sometimes that one of the contingencies is to kind of try that again, right? But we're not saying try that again slow. We're not saying try that again with another strategy like easy onset or stretchy speech. We're just saying, hey, I noticed that was a little bumpy. Could you try that again? And they, the long way of the long standing belief was that was the ingredient. Before I tell you the result of what we now know, other verbal contingencies would be acknowledging smooth speech. So, and that's way more. So if there's like a percentage, it would be like, 60% were acknowledging, oh, Mom, can we go outside? Yeah, you were going outside, but that was really smooth. Nice. Or I just noticed it. You're not supposed to kind of opinion on it, but so that was smooth speech. Sure, we can go outside, right? So acknowledging, and then acknowledging bumpy speech. Mom, can we go out speech? Huh. Or outside? That a little bumpy, but sure, you can go outside. And then having a self-evaluation, like how did that come out? Was that smooth or bumpy? And then the fourth verbal contingency is a repair. Hey, that sounded a little bumpy. Can you try that again? And so that's like kind of the overview of the program. And what we now know, that they did their own internal study, and they found that the verbal contingencies are likely not the main ingredient in the success of that program. So now, which is really amazing that they kind of took an internal look in a study and want to get to the bottom of like, what is it that works. I think they were hoping for the opposite result, to say that, they had two groups of participants. One were given just like the other parts of the program and training, and then one did the verbal contingencies, and they didn't find any difference. And so now they're kind of reinvestigating and seeing like, what is it then? Because it's working. So that kind of, the jury's still out on that one. But I think parents, when you have a highly sensitive child, or a child that's very aware of just everything in life, that they feel really weird about calling attention to this, or maybe framing fluent and smooth speech as good and disfluent speech as bad. And if the child does not outgrow it, what does that messaging do about how they feel about talking, right? And that's where I stand. It's my personal opinion, and I feel really good about that, because I know that there's like another equally as effective researched proven way to help the child in perhaps the same way that doesn't require that kind of underlying message, right? So but if you're doing lid comb and it feels fine and you're seeing good results, absolutely continue to do it, because at the end of the day, we want to help our child. And if that program is helping your child, then do it. So there's no judgment on that piece. But I just want parents to know that if it feels uncomfortable and it doesn't align, or it's taking away from their true engagement with their child, then there is another option. And a lot of parents that I work with are kind of in that camp. They're like, I want to help my kid, but this, I don't know, like they're either not even listening to like my contingencies, or feel like he's a highly sensitive one. And when I say that and they see kind of this change and they're already starting, like not talking or just changing words already. But if we just say like if we don't have to do that piece of it and there's other things that we can do, then great. So let me look at my list to make sure. Okay, yeah. So I think I kind of went all over the place. If you've been with me for 31 minutes and 19 seconds, I hope, I really feel like I hope it was valuable for you. And I guess like to kind of sum everything up, what I would look for in an SLT or SLP, as we say in the States, is, well, a red flag would be if they're only focusing on getting a percentage of a fluency, right? By the end of 6 weeks, they will be, they will speak with 80% fluency, or they will reduce their stuttering by XYZ. And that's at 7 and under, that's a fine goal. We don't have to abandon that. If we can reduce and eliminate stuttering, that's what we all want. But if they're not including you in the team, if they're not asking about your child's temperament, emotionality, reactivity, arousal, if they're not considering that whole piece, what is your family, your pace of life, like 84% of kids are who stutter are in the highly sensitive range. This is an entire module of my course. So 84% of kids who stutter are considered highly sensitive, as opposed to only 20% of the population. So those kids, which are a lot of our kids, if we're attending to that part of them, the direct therapy is sometimes not even needed. Also, but not bad if it is. So I would say if that whole component is missing, if they're not asking about those types of things, I would just bring it up and like, hey, I learned this. Like, what can we do to support them in that way? And then also just the emotional piece of that as well, or if they're not addressing like confidence and sending a really clear message that like, hey, like when you're with me, how you talk doesn't matter. I really care about what you're saying and not how you say it. I'm here to just teach you some things that can make it easier if you want. Like I always say, like, you are the boss. Like if you don't want to use the strategies, you don't have to, because and so anyway, going way overboard here. And I have to go. I have a client to see. I hope you found that helpful. Please feel free to ask more questions. And thanks for hanging in with me for 33 minutes and 55 seconds. If you're interested in a live workshop or the course, please message me. And if I get enough interest, I will probably do another live workshop. I really need to focus on getting this course done, but I always get drawn to like the here and the now. And I know it feels like it is such an urgent problem that if I say, wait 3 weeks and my course will be ready, that seems like forever. And I really understand that. Also, if your child is older, indirect, this kind of indirect, that title goes because like indirect therapy for someone who is a child who is 9 or 10 is not like a thing. but absolutely dealing with the whole child is a thing. Like, so I guess it loses a title, but should not be out of the equation for things that can help them in coping with it, and kind of cultivating a more symbiotic existence with stuttering. I'm not going to try to say like accept it, yay yay. Like, you can't get your thoughts out fast enough. It's, it's not that, but it's just making sure that they, kind of attending to that piece of them and how they feel, and that is just beyond important. And I hope to, kind of meet all the new members and comment. And thank you, Patricia and Melissa, for hanging in with me. I can see you just put your comment in. And again, post questions, share. Another thing, this little group is very special, and I'm fiercely protective of it. And I've had a couple moms lately just message me like with Maydays, and I just encourage them to like please share with the group, because you will find more support and more understanding. I could get like emotional, but like from the moms in this group, and I know you guys need it. You need it more than I think. So, wow. Anyway, I love what I do. Clearly, have a great night.